Bluff Mountain Town Board meeting to order. We stand for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and have a moment of silence for your special intentions. Very good. Have your seat. I have one announcement here I want to read to you. I wish to apologize to all the senior citizens for our town for not responding to your calls and not getting the Lake Tomahawk Clubhouse open back up. The seniors, and they make up close to half our town's population, have been denied a meeting place to socialize for over 8 months. That's 160 days. We can't redo the basement quickly, but we can address the issue of getting the main floor open so the seniors can use it. Also, we will be able to accommodate our citizens who wish to rent out the clubhouse for birthdays, weddings, etc., and let the town earn some revenue. The clubhouse was built back in the Depression era by PWA, at the same time that the lake and the pool were also built. I remember from my high school days that the Red Coach, a teen club that we started, would have dances there because our club, where Keller Williams is, presently in the center of town, Senator would not accommodate the more than 200 kids. The clubhouse has been the site of hundreds of events with over 150 people attending for years. When Balfour, the restoration company we hired to clean out the basement under the clubhouse after the flood, they exposed all the floor support systems for the upstairs, thus exposing some damage from a fire in 1976. After the fire, which only did minor damage, $15,000 according to an article in the Black Mountain News, the basement was redesigned to accommodate a new concrete floor to be poured over the dirt floor which covered half of the basement. At this time, the main floor was engineered with new 1-foot thick steel I-beams and steel support posts. We need to look back in our files for the engineering company and drawings to determine that the floor can handle the load of 130 people, a figure set by the fire department. If we can't find those documents, I hope the board will immediately hire a structural engineer who would verify the structure's integrity. The present support system has 5 12-inch thick I-beams and wooden floor joists that have been reinforced with additional wooden joists. If that is not enough to justify 130 people, then let's hire this engineer. We do not need an RFQ. Have him design what it needs to meet the load of 130 people. I know this is on the master project list that Jessica wants FEMA to do, but that will take months and months. Let's pay for let them pay for the downstairs, and we will do the upstairs. We have the money if we need it. Let's follow the Nike saying, just do it. Let's not find excuses not to do it. We know there are ways to get this done quickly. I implore the board to act quickly. Next, the ethics statement. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the council, all council members have a duty to conduct the affairs of the governing body in an open and public manner, free of conflicts of interest. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any council member, his or her family, or close business associates?
No.
Does any council member have a financial interest in any contract coming before this council today?
No.
There being none, all council members have a duty and an obligation to vote. I think we've got a couple of resolutions here.
Resolution recognizing Juneteenth. Whereas on September 22nd, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that as of January 1, 1863. All enslaved people in the rebellious states would be thenceforward and forever free. And whereas it took almost 3 more years of conflict and loss to bring about the end of the Civil War and the ratification of the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution in December 1865 to officially end slavery in the United States. And whereas, as the news of freedom spread gradually throughout the nation, on June 19, 1865, 2 months after the official surrender of the Confederacy at Appomattox, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, and issued General Order No. 3, announcing freedom to some of the last enslaved people in the United States. And whereas June 19th, or Juneteenth, also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day, celebrates the emancipation of those who had been enslaved in the United States and became a federally recognized holiday in 2021, observed annually on June 19th. And whereas on this anniversary each year, organizations and individuals throughout North Carolina and our nation celebrate African American heritage, history, freedom, and culture with events and ceremonies that reflect the power of community, family, art, and tradition in the face of oppression. And whereas observing Juneteenth encourages all residents to learn from the past, engage in meaningful dialogue, and continue working towards a community that values diversity and ensures the dignity and rights of every individual. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Black Mountain does hereby proclaim June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth in the Town of Black Mountain, and encourages residents, organizations, and institutions to commemorate this historic occasion through education, reflection, and celebration. Signed, C. Michael Sullivan.
Do we go ahead and vote?
Motion?
I'll move to approve the resolution as presented.
Okay. Any discussion on it? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, it passes unanimously. Alice has the resolution.
This month I'll present Pride Month Resolution 2025, Resolution Number R-25-26. Whereas all are welcome in the town of Black Mountain to live, work, and play, and everyone deserves a place to call home where they are safe, happy, accepted, and supported. And whereas the month of June was chosen as Pride Month to commemorate those who led the 1969 uprising at the Stonewall Tavern in Greenwich Village, which sparked the modern, ongoing LGBTQ+ movement to protect the dignity and rights of sexual and gender minorities. And whereas June 2025 marks the 55th annual celebration throughout the United States of LGBTQ+ Pride Month and recognizes the meaningful contributions made by our LGBTQ+ community that enhance our country's diverse history and culture and will shape its future. And whereas the town of Black Mountain adopted a resolution R-25-18 on April 14th, 2025, entitled A Resolution of the Town Council of Black Mountain, North Carolina, proclaiming that all are welcome in our community, regardless of sexual orientation, gender, ethnicity, religion, national origin, race, ability, socioeconomic status, age, or any other characteristic, and that all individuals will be treated equally in the name of the law. And the town of Black Mountain joins the LGBTQ+ community in the celebration of diversity and unity, and remains committed to treating all people with fairness and respect. And whereas the town of Black Mountain believes in working together with all members of our community to facilitate strong relationships and provide safety, dignity, and a welcoming environment for our residents and visitors. Now therefore be it resolved, the Town Council of the Town of Black Mountain does hereby proclaim the month of June as Pride Month in Black Mountain, and encourages all residents, businesses, and community organizations to join in celebrating the history, culture, and contributions of the LGBTQ+ community.
Do I hear a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'd like to make that motion, please.
All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right, next up is citizens' comments.
Mayor, Board, Mark White, 787 Lakey Gap Road, Black Mountain. Wanted to update on some information on the water system and some false information given to the board from town staff on the water. Spoke with DEQ a few weeks ago, and for the third year straight, the town of Black Mountain has not completed their local water supply plan, which, when you're applying for grant money from DEQ, it's based on points. And so for the last 3 years, Black Mountain hasn't received any extra points. So, next on the list, due to the booster pump being down at the town's big tank since the storm, the town is down 25 to 30 PSI water pressure across the whole water system, which has some customers at the end of Camp Branch Road and up on Hunting Lodge Acres only having 5 to 10 PSI. The state of North Carolina mandates, and this is in the book, a minimal of 30 PSI at the customer's tap and 20 under fire flow. And there's several customers, because of the booster pump being down, up at the tank, which is an easy fix to fix that booster. Like I say, I was here for 30 years, Director of Water Quality, and we had to replace that thing about every 3 years, about $3,500 to replace it. Next on the list, on the violations on the water samples. The violations were not, as town staff had said, due to the contaminants of wells. These samples were supposed to be taken from the distribution system, which there's an entry point sample and a distribution sample. And town went off boil water November the 12th, and some of these samples were due in December, and the town says, well, we didn't have water at that time. Well, the town did. You have to take them whether you purchase water or you're producing water. Same thing with that was for the back T samples, and same thing for the trihalomethane HA5. Then in closing, I'd like to say, my 37 years experience in water, all my numerous state certifications, and the hundreds of hours of continuing ed, I've got 3 jobs right now. I'm doing contract work for FEMA.
Okay.
I'm the public
Mark,
work.
3 minutes is up.
Thank you very much, appreciate your comments on that. It's good to go ahead and bring out what is not correct.
I'd like to respond to that, please. Can you get Jamie to come in here, please? If we're going to be talked about like that, we're going to respond to those accusations, and we're going to do it right now.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you heard what he just said, but I'd like for you to respond to these water questions.
I heard bits and pieces of it. Like I said at my last meeting, I don't know how else to put it, but Mark is a very disgruntled employee when he left. And it pretty much stands obvious. As you can tell, you can hear him scoffing behind me. It's pretty
Well, if
consistent.
you would get to the points, please.
Well, the point
Not
is
just
that it's
talking about
not
him.
true, and I stated that
Josh,
at the
I'm going to go
last.
ahead and have you address what he said as being false. Please
It's-
hold your comments to those.
It's false. That's my comment. It's all false. I stated it in the last report. We have contacted DEQ. Jessica presented to you. I mean, I don't know what else to do. You even talked to him yourself, Mike. You did.
No, I did not.
Yes, you
Not
did.
him.
Well, somebody's lying because the DEQ person said you did.
So, so, let's not try to create something
I'm
here.
not creating nothing.
So do you have any other information?
No, sir, I don't. We are in compliance. We just finished our CCR. Everything's in compliance, just like DEQ said. Everything. Double check it.
We will be double checking.
We'll have DEQ come and do a presentation in front of this council.
That's
We'll
what
be happy
needs
to
to be
do
done.
that. We will be happy to do that. And I hope you're
Why
here
did
for
y'all
that.
go to Montreat, try to get me fired from Montreat, and I don't even work for Montreat?
I don't know.
You want to call it, you call it.
Hold on a second. That's enough. You answered the questions. Thank you very much.
You got another person for citizen comment.
David Galloway. Go ahead, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, name is David Galloway, 103 Brookhaven Drive, Black Mountain, North Carolina, and I am a member of the Recreation Commission here for the town. And I just wanted to put a spotlight on a couple things. Our area has lost a lot of recreational infrastructure and opportunities since Helene. And I know previous council meetings featured a lot of strong community support for the Lakeview Center and for the town golf course, which I think is good. I would just ask that you please don't overlook disc golf. My understanding is the Western North Carolina Disc Golf Association wants to help rebuild the front nine and can get donated baskets from Innova for the Veterans Park. And the back nine is mostly okay if the town will please mow the grass and maintain the course, not the designated pollinator spaces, but the grass fields that make up the fairways. So this can be a shared multi-use space again. This used to be the best beginner-friendly course in Greater Buncombe County, and it filled that role for helping new players learn how to play the game before they went on to some other harder courses that are around here. But recently, it's been a ghost town every time I've been over there. Many people have shared these sentiments with me. They just can't make town council meetings, but they've encouraged me to come here and share them, and because it's an important place for them in the community, and they would just like to see it return to use. And so I just wanted to share that information, and I appreciate your time.
Very good. Thank you for coming. Let's hope that we can get to that. All right, that's citizen comments.
If I may, there's an item I'd like to add to the agenda, and I apologize for not bringing that on Thursday. Is this an appropriate time to bring that?
You can bring it up now.
Thank you. I've been serving on the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium for the past 2.5 years as the primary member, with our assistant manager, Jessica Trotman, serving as the alternate. I've recently spoken with her and our new planning director, Michelle Kennedy, and we're in agreement that now would be an appropriate time to switch the alternate to Michelle. If the council would please consider this. Michelle has expertise in the area of affordable housing, and it seems a good time to welcome her to our community and the region and have her voice on that group.
Let's just add that to the bottom of the consent agenda. Does everybody agree to add that to the bottom of the consent agenda?
Thank you.
All right, good enough. Okay, so 5H.
5K, I believe.
Okay. You're right. Okay. Okay. Communications from staff.
Jessica, Helene Recovery Storm Recovery Update.
All right, good evening. So we're going to talk briefly about some recovery and resilience updates. You'll notice I added another word to the title, resilience, because the money's coming out and we're kind of having to catch it where we can. So we're going to open the scope of this up just a touch. Look over here. So we are tackling 3 things all at once because recovery wasn't enough. So we're dealing with mitigation and preparedness opportunities throughout the organization beyond just public safety debriefs. It is a huge and wide-ranging topic, but I wanted to point out that we are running 3 different rabbits right now. So with our debris removal updates, that text is a little on the small side. The short of it is the state's taking over contracts where the direct federal assistance has ended, but the details of that are scarce. All we know is the SMART program, and that we are on the list for such thing. But what that looks like, no one knows. Waterways is continuing, and just notably, Governor Stein's request to the feds for the 100% cost share on continuing for Cat A has been denied. The appeal for that's been denied, and that is going to come down in the budgets you're going to see coming out of Raleigh the next few months. That graphic up there you've seen before, that is the PPDR applications and where they are in process. So that, that program closed earlier in the spring, but the permits associated with that are percolating through the process to USACE and are out in the field.
So everybody knows what we're talking about, PPDR.
Private property debris removal.
Thank you.
And I did leave some acronyms in here just for joke's sakes, because it's also funny, but I will explain what they are.
I say it's for them, but it's
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. This was like learning French in college a few months ago, and now it's just easier than French still though. So our donated resources, I wanted to point out that staff, particularly our new planning director, Michelle Kennedy, has been helpful in shaking loose some resources that support recovery and do not directly relate to a specific item per se. City of Wilmington and City of Greensboro are both making available to us some equipment, and we'll be accepting that after they dispose of it on their side. Some trucks and reel mowers that can help us take care of the new baseball fields and things. Also, exciting to people like me and some other department heads is additional modules for GovWell. GovWell is the development portal that we use, and also we already have modules for stormwater inspections. It is not a cheap program, but they are giving us 2 modules for free for the next year. For Public Works work orders, which will be extremely helpful in tracking repairs and reporting those into FEMA, as also just daily operations, and also permitting module for the fire department. So
who gives those to us?
GovWell is the company that we
The
use.
software.
Mhm.
I got you.
So this is just a couple of examples. We continue to see our floodplain development permits rolling in that are storm related, and that's good news. These are great indicators of recovery. And just as a reminder, we send monthly reports to FEMA. We have to track every site that is in this process if they had 40% damage or higher to see if they tip over into that 50% rule. So all of those permits represent a lot more than just helping somebody fill out some paperwork. There is a lot of data collection and field work associated with this.
Jessica,
Yep.
is that, would we typically see 6, that regular number, or would it, and we've added all these, these 60 other ones, or?
This is a dramatic increase.
Okay,
Yeah, over 100% increase,
okay.
closer to 150. Yeah.
Wow.
So for planning and development services, since October 7th, that date is when all reopened, and so that's why we picked that date. So you have your permits and your inspections. You can see that we're, a third, 2/3 in there with storm permits, and that also for regular inspections. That is not the right number. That's over 3,000 now. I apologize. The proportions are the same, but the numbers are a little off. Insurance. Angela is working some serious magic organizing data from all of the insurance claims. It looks like the last report I saw this morning was 144 pages long, and we are extrapolating information from that help us shape our recovery process and also our FEMA projects, because if it's wholly covered by from insurance, I have to tease it out of our FEMA projects. And if it is wholly covered by insurance, we need to sit down with department heads and let them know that so that they can move on some of those purchases. For example, the knuckle boom truck. Previously, that was in the vehicles project with FEMA, but the insurance proceeds covered that expense. So that expense comes out. So we have to weed through, about 800 line items of damages and make that assessment and determine additional funds. So if there's some insurance money, we have to figure out how much more money we need, and we have to manage it all and restrict it by line item because FEMA will deduct that insurance proceed from that project cost. Everybody, it's tedious, but it's super necessary, and by the end of the month, we'll have a really great grip, probably by the end of next week, really great grip of where we are on all of that. Our preliminary insurance proceeds, this number, this 2.78, only represents the electronic transfers, because that was easy to pull out of the data we've organized. We have had more checks come in, but they are not all in the spreadsheet yet, so I didn't want to just give you a made-up number. That's from the electronic transfers. Here's a variety of FEMA projects in progress in different sections. The expedited project, miscellaneous town buildings, the EOC1, which is forced account labor associated with the EOC. We had a roads project, dog park. I actually emailed Public Works this evening about going ahead and trying to get the debris out of there ourselves. I've lost faith that the Corps is going to get that in a time frame that meets everybody's expectations, including my own. Stormwater control measure project has been awarded, and we have a kickoff meeting later this week. The water distribution system, it's just a matter of one outstanding invoice that has to be revised with greater detail for FEMA requirements, and then that project will be submitted. Vehicles is about to go in. Hilltop Road stabilization, we'll mention that we have selected our engineering firm, and that selection is on your agenda tonight. Golf course project, I've given everything to our consultants to start building that project, and that will front cost for bridges and cart paths. We are having a really hard time getting folks to put in estimates for cart paths repairs. Management costs, that's your CAT-Z project for IEM and also Fountain Works. You've seen some polling questions in your email. We will be having a workshop early in the fall, getting some policy and direction on certain items related to recovery and resilience that will be reimbursable through FEMA as it relates to training for public assistance.
So the IME costs, do we have any figures on that for the board to see? I'd ask Josh for that.
33,000 is currently what we have spent to date.
Yeah, but I'm saying break it down to what it's, exactly how much do we spend? Is it by month? How much more do we
It's
anticipate to
5%.
spend?
It's category Z. It's calculated by project cost, so it's 5% of your project costs. So that's what's allowable, and that's how they calculate it. So that's how it works.
So what about their per hour fee?
It's a lump sum contract not to exceed $1 million based on the 5%. And that's all I've memorized from that contract from November or December.
Yeah. So you'll be giving us some figures each month as to where we are on the management costs on that.
It's all reimbursable. It's already obligated, so we're just drawing down from FEMA. But if you want to know exactly what it cost. The golf course temporary building, FEMA's going to pay for a temporary building to house the equipment. We were getting some progress on leases for new equipment, and so FEMA is happy to secure a temporary building.
Now, how does that figure into trying to go ahead and to redo the building that is presently there?
That building's going to be torn down. I'm jumping through all the necessary hoops because it's in the non-encroachment area, and it has an over 50% loss on the SD
The figures
calculator.
that are used in there are questionable figures.
The FEMA calculator is not negotiable. It is what we have to use, and it requires the building be torn down.
Yeah, but Rick Burton, the building inspector, went ahead and moved the figure, the replacement cost figure, from $150 a square foot down to $75 a square foot. And by doing that, then you do exceed the 50% value.
You're going to exceed it.
$75, just a second.
I'm not going to debate you. Say what you want to say.
$75 for replacement is not the going market rate. Between 100 and 125 is. So if you just used 100, that goes ahead, and the figures that are used in that calculator would be under 50%.
I can't take what's in the calculator. A&E services,
So we're not going to deal with that?
we can't, based on,
Speak to it.
we're good, thank you.
Yeah.
Everything has been, this is not an item open for discussion. We don't make these decisions. These are above us at FEMA what's allowable, and that's what we're doing.
Okay.
A&E
I'll
services.
get in touch with FEMA and talk to them about that.
Enjoy. FEMA is really doing a solid on engineering and architectural services. This is not normally how it goes, is to have a zero project, but in this event, they are, which is great, because we would otherwise be stymied for a very long time on some of these large projects. There are 15 task orders in the RFQ, which is required by law. You cannot just hire an architect or an engineer. You do have to federally procure them. And that is posted, and people are already emailing with questions and things, so we're excited that we will have a positive response to that. A little excited it might be kind of a lot of people. I know City of Asheville did this and had over 150 responses. So we might be seeking volunteers to help review RFQs. But that's a very exciting. So what that is called is a zero stage project, and then you will amend the project moving forward. And that is going to be really helpful in allowing us to tap into additional funding sources, particularly USDA loans, and starting to figure out how to fix things.
Sorry, Jesse, that will encompass all of our structures?
Anything that needs architect or engineering services. So like the dams, that is included, the shooting range, police department, water system elements, anything that requires an engineer is in that RFQ, including buildings.
Okay.
Stream
And
bank.
roads, I mean, does that include things like, I guess Hilltop's probably the only remaining major road?
Hilltop was procured separately because we had funding to get started on that. So that's already done. The second stage of it is in the RFQ for this, because you allocated funding for stabilization, not a complete fix.
And will they, once that engineering work begins, or it will be project by project, or will it be
Yes,
all?
we will hire, we anticipate hiring multiple firms.
Okay.
And then we will need many, many, many different types of engineers. So when they respond to the RFQ, they have to say which task order they are submitting for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, so they're not submitting for the entire package?
No.
Got it.
No, there would be, I don't know of a firm that has all the different things. Some of them are super specialized.
Okay. Okay.
So just a couple of repairs, and this list might be longer, but these are the ones I can remember off the top of my head. So not all repairs are FEMA related, which might be hard to believe. But these are examples of where insurance has covered that cost, and so these items have been removed from the scope of our FEMA damages. And so we will actually go into the FEMA portal and delete these from the system, so FEMA is not barking at us saying, why aren't you doing something on the croquet roof? Well, because I don't need to. So the golf equipment lease, the barn roof for the golf carts, croquet building, the knuckle boom, and Center for the Arts roof. All of those things were repaired or replaced with insurance proceeds. I hope that list gets longer soon. The longer this list gets, the better our life is going to be. So let's cross our fingers for that. So I want to point out just a couple of things we'll be thinking about moving forward. I'm tracking really closely changes at the federal level, proposed changes. Had a great discussion with former FEMA leadership last week, trying to gauge how distressed to be or to not be, and that was a really wonderful conversation. We are all anticipating further slowing of reimbursements, which, if you might remember, they're already pretty slow. The FEMA disaster relief, we call the DR fund, is in the negative for the fiscal year, and FEMA's going to have to start prioritizing where they're putting money. I will say the budgets that are floating around Washington right now is the largest allocation that's ever been made to the DR account. That's not making headlines, but it should catch your attention because that's very critical in what the next year is going to look like. We also anticipate FEMA support shifting the first big event that happens this summer. It's burn season and it is storm season. They are severely understaffed at this point, and it's normal for staff to be deployed in different areas and move around, but we could lose folks in the region, the first big event that happens. So you're just aware of that. And we're also writing extremely detailed justification reports for all questions related to guidance and project-specific needs. So we're creating an extensive paper trail. If we say, FEMA, we want you to do this, we don't just put it in an email. It is a formal report requesting formal interpretation of eligibility and going back and forth. So it's a new hobby, really, lots of reports. And we also have friends here tonight, the UNC Moorhead, I left out Kane scholars, who are working on some great projects for us, and I think you're going to be hearing from them tonight. But they fit into our recovery and resiliency progress, looking back to help record our response as a town, really make that time capsule for us, and also looking forward to help get some nuts and bolts of a resiliency and long-term strategy in place. And they'll be here with us all summer. Just some updates on funding efforts. So this list is actually longer, but these are the ones that we're working on right now. There's a lot of money floating around. Don't get excited by it. You may not qualify, as I have learned. We are not there's a huge amount of money that's come out of EPA down to the state for the state revolving loan fund. We are not eligible for that. I just wish I didn't learn that 4 hours into the meeting on it, but we do not meet any of the affordability criteria. Normally you have to have 3 elements. They've reduced it to 2 in Helene impacted areas, but we had 0, which shows a decoupling in our affordability between our general fund and our community. So that's something to think about. We have a $200,000 grant that came in, if you remember our $3 million loan for the water system. We automatically received a $200,000 grant for technical assistance. We have waited to figure out how we want to utilize that funding because we did not want to duplicate efforts with FEMA funding. And now that the landscape's settled down a little bit, we'll be using some of that for an AIA, which is an inventory and assessment of our water system, so we can engage in capital planning and repairs for resiliency. We cannot do true resiliency planning unless we better understand our existing systems. So here's the one I left in just for giggles, the LOI on the HMGP for NCEM and FEMA. So that's your letters of interest for hazard mitigation grant program at North Carolina Emergency Management. I submitted 9 projects to this funding. I don't think they'll all get funded. I don't know if one of them will get funded, but I will ask everyone for help. And these projects are, this is the first step in the LOI process. We will be invited to submit more robust applications with a Halloween deadline that will require engineers to come in and develop. And then the state packages up all of the applications that they want to see funded, and they send them off to FEMA, who will then determine if those are funded or not.
So should we get tapped for one or any of those projects, the engineering process that you're talking about, that would be something that we fund and seek reimbursement for, or?
Potentially. But if not, it's not doing full design, it's developing budgets, timelines, and scopes of work.
Feasibility.
And feasibility, it just has, those things have to be sealed, so you're not actually getting into engineer plans or anything like that. And that's it.
Jessica, about a month ago, there was talk that there might be some more gap loan funding available through the
Yes.
state. Have we heard anything about that?
We have submitted our documents, but decisions have not come out yet.
Do we know when to expect
I
that?
don't know if
We're
they
due on
said-
June 6th, so probably soon. I can reach out and find out, but I would say in the next couple of weeks, I would hope.
Okay.
I will say, I mean, if you're watching the state budget, the Senate and the House are taking very different approaches to recovery, but I think the Senate is starting to soften a bit. And I think that we will probably see, if I read the tea leaves, an independent standalone budget adjacent bill that the House has put forth. I think the Senate is going to get on board with that. It seems to have more energy behind it. One's about 500 million, one's 700, but the Senate only allocates about 25 million. So, whereas the House budget allocates every single penny, so it's actionable.
Josh, really quick, last week, the state said on those secondary loans that are coming out, they will not start advising of the amounts and distributing the money until they finished with the first round, and they were still working on those. So they didn't give an exact date, but
More to come.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So we'll welcome up our civic collaboration teams from UNC Chapel Hill, Moorhead Kane Scholars. They're going to talk to you just a little bit about what they're doing for the town of Black Mountain for the next 5 weeks, I guess. So, yeah, y'all can just kind of huddle around there. So.
Hi everyone, my name's Allie O'Brien.
My name's Sophie Luxton.
My name is Rafe Levy.
I'm Brian Zakee.
And I'm Joe Scala.
So like Jessica kind of already explained a bit, we're working on 2 primary projects throughout our 8 weeks. The first is a historical report, and we're kind of leaning into some elements of oral history as well with that, but primarily focusing on a factual report to detail the town of Black Mountain's response to Helene and some citizen experiences with that. And so over the last 3 weeks, we've been interviewing lots of people and hopefully you all soon, and members of the police department, the fire department. Today we were meeting with citizens in the Hilltop Road area and hearing about what they've been going through. And so yes, we're planning to continue those interviews and hope that that information gathering process, along with some document review that we've been doing, will also inform the second project that Jessica spoke about a little bit, which is thinking more long-term resilience and recovery. And while we're not engineers, kind of anything we've gathered from our conversations with different departments, because it seems like everyone has really clear ideas of what they would want to happen, but we think being able to compile it into one report could be helpful for the town. So that's just a little bit of what we've been up to. Some of you all may be receiving emails from us requesting interviews. We would love to chat with you. And we're here until mid-July, so come say hi.
Sounds good, sounds good. I see that you, like myself, has gotten over yesterday. I took my black armband off this morning.
But that was awful.
Anyway, thank you very much. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you at 9:30 in the morning.
Yes.
Baseball? I'm guessing you're talking about baseball, Mayor? Baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost last 2 innings to Arizona. They were ahead 4-2. Top of the eighth. But it's like Tim Pace, our ag teacher at Owen, always said, baseball's just a game. Farmers feed the world.
That is correct.
All right.
Consent agenda.
All right, got quite a few items tonight on consent agenda, beginning with adoption of meeting minutes from May 8th, May 12th, and May 15th. 5B would be the monthly tax collector report. 5C, a resolution to recognize grant funds for the Carver School Drainage Mitigation Project in the amount of $25,950. 5D is a memorial bench donation at the Carver Playground, and that is in the amount of $698. 5E, acceptance of Dr. John Wilson Community Garden barn roofing donation. That is in the amount of just over $1,087. 5F, Community Foundation of Western North Carolina grant and creation of special revenue grant fund project for community garden. This is $50,000 we received from the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina to drill a well at the community garden to serve as the irrigation system. We're no longer able to use the Swannanoa River due to some changes in regulations from Bounty and Soul, the state, and the fact that it has been contaminated with E. coli for quite some time, and does. And does. We don't want to put that on our veggies, put it that way. So we're looking to do that well. And I will say, we did speak to the county about an existing well. They don't have any record, but I'd be happy to go look at that, if you know where that is.
Yeah, that's right there at the very back of the soccer center.
Okay.
Been there for 30, 40 years.
5G, Tomahawk Dam amended ordinance. 5F, the closure of the Tomahawk Dam capital project ordinance. 5I, Hurricane Helene amended ordinance and budget amendments. 5J, consideration of other budget amendments to the general fund. And then lastly, what we added, 5K, would be the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium alternate seat. And that's your consent agenda.
Did we skip, or did I miss it, the Tomahawk Dam Capital Project amended ordinance? You may have said it.
I said it.
Yeah,
There
he
was
said
a,
it.
okay, my bad,
Yeah, he said it.
thank you.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Any discussion of any items? Any items you want to pull off? If not, then let's hear a motion. Let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
That was
unanimous.
the most fun consent agenda I've ever voted on. I mean, all the generosity from these various entities that we wouldn't be able to handle at this point in time. And the Buncombe Partnership for Children, they're the ones doing the flood mitigation. I mean, it's just really heartwarming because we need the help. And I want to thank them and also the folks that are doing the memorial bench donation. I'm sure somebody else here knows more about that than I do. And
It's Angela Young.
yeah, and I don't know, usually consent agendas aren't this much fun. Thank you to all of them for their generosity.
Now we have our two public hearings. First one being adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 budget ordinance and fee schedule.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and make a motion to open up the public hearing.
Tammy, will you come up?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so I think this is really more for folks probably watching than you guys. We've looked at it and looked at it and looked at it, and I'm sure you don't ever want to hear the word budget again, at least until after the new year. But I'm going to go through this. I went through this already when we presented this back in mid-May, but basically just want to hit some high points. You can go to the next one. So the annual budget across all funds, just around $19.5 million. There is no property tax increase in this recommended budget. There is a 3% cost of living that would be for all employees, full and part-time. We do have new excuse me, new positions, 4 full-time and 1 part-time. The waste reduction fee is going to increase by $3, making it $8 a month. And water rates will increase by about 15%. And we talked about that during the recommended budget, and the bond fee is coming off, so that is going to make that not be as great as 15%. It will look much less than that. Major capital expenditures, not a lot this year, as we talked about. We do have some street paving in here, 2 police vehicles, public safety generator, golf course equipment, although I don't know that that's really a capital expenditure now. That's more of a lease, because I think instead of buying new equipment, we're able to lease that now, so. You can go to the next.
Is the generator for the public safety building, is that the one to replace the generator that was there?
So this would be a yes and no. A generator that is currently there, Mr. Mayor, does not actually power the entire building. It only does certain things. So this new generator would be one that would be mobile, that we could plug in and directly wire to the building to be able to operate the whole building if we needed to in the future.
So it'll be a 3-phase generator.
Yes. Yep, so we won't.
What is that? That's over, what, a couple $100,000?
No, it's not that expensive. We're getting it, we've budgeted about $30,000, I think, for it, or $40,000.
Okay. But there again, that will operate everything on a 3-phase power.
It'll operate the whole building, that's correct.
Okay.
Townwide budget, general fund, $11,785,500. Special revenue fund for the fire department, $3.3 million. Water fund is $2.8 million. Planning and development, I can't see that. I'm gonna need to get glasses, I'm afraid. $784. Stormwater fund, $378, and other funds, about $420. And the total for, across all funds, $19,569,250. This is about 11% down from our current year and about $2.5 million down from our current year. This is some and the same. We've got our requested budget. You see the 2025 amended budget, and then you see actuals, of course, for 2024 and 2023. If you look at the amended budget, we're down considerably more than 11%, about 22%. Next. So we have four major funds, general fund being the largest, fire department, planning and development, and then our water fund. This goes through our general fund summary, if you will. At the top, you've got revenues from ad valorem taxes to our local sales tax, different permits and fees. We also get franchise taxes. And then you've got expense at the bottom. The largest portion of expense, of course, is typically personnel and benefits. Next. Fire department summary, just broken down the same way as you just saw the general fund. So that is separate in the fact that we do operate the East Malcolm Fire District. So we do include county tax revenue from ad valorem as well as sales tax in this budget. And then we basically appropriate money from the general fund into this budget. It is down from this year's too, as well. Planning and development, kind of the same. You know, this does get, not that we function outside of our town limits, but this fund does take into account the fees for planning and development and building inspections, which you are required to do in a separate fund to assure that you are spending the revenue in this fund and not other places. This one's also down from our 2024 actuals, down quite a bit from our 2025 amended budget, over $250,000. Water fund, you start seeing a pattern here. Everything seems to be down. It's because we did not budget. We don't have the money to budget what we have been budgeting in the past. Water fund is going to come in at $2.8 million, which is a little bit more than the actuals for 2024. Now this year, it's quite a bit more just due to some amended budget figures. Revenues, our largest source of revenue, of course, is property tax, and then, of course, sales tax. Those make up about 60% of our revenues, at least. And this is just a kind of a graph to show you kind of where we've been the past few years and where we are now. Our property tax rate, as you can see, has fallen some over the past few years and stayed relatively consistent. We have not done a lot of property tax increases throughout the years in Black Mountain, as you know. Next year will be the property tax reappraisal, so we will be calculating some new numbers for next year and looking at a revenue neutral rate that we have to do, have to at least present, don't have to adopt it, but we have to present that by law, and we'll do that for next year. But based on a lot of other counties that are going through this, they're seeing some substantial growth in properties. Tammy, will you talk about the 2026 going down on this one a little bit?
So it has to do with the utility companies have to pay property tax, and that's the state evaluates those. But since Buncombe County missed their reevaluation in '25, they penalized us and they dropped that amount, so we lost like, I think it was like $11 million in taxable income, based on that. Buncombe County was, reaching out to the state, trying to get them to, look at our circumstance and reassess that, but as of this week, they haven't heard anything back, so,
When you say lost 11 million, you're talking about Buncombe County wide?
for
Or just
us.
Black Mountain?
Yeah. Yeah, so, it was a big, that was the largest part of that, because overall, our tax values were pretty good, you know, and our, with our rate, because things just were increasing in value, but that utility was a big drop for us, so that's what caused the majority of that.
Go into that a little bit more, because I'm just confused on this.
So your, like your railroad companies, your, any state-owned utilities, or the utilities that the state oversees, the state evaluates those, and then they send the values of those to the county, but then they're based on our tax rates every year. And if you do not do your reval in the 4 years, then they drop that to like 50% of what that assessed value is. So that was that huge drop.
So that's gonna go back up?
Yeah, it'll go back up after we have our reval. And the county's still hoping that the state will look at the situation and not penalize all of Buncombe County for that.
Was the penalty because of the 4 years?
Yeah, because they weren't,
Because of
yeah,
FLE?
yeah, because they weren't able to do reval, yeah.
This is not a question for right now, but it makes me wonder how that's been handled on the coast when they've experienced hurricanes, and if there's some room for advocacy at
Yeah.
the state level on our part.
I wasn't even aware that
I
it
wasn't either.
really existed
Never heard
until
that.
I questioned, I asked Buncombe County, I'm like, why is this dropping so much from the
Yeah.
prior years?
The state needs to hear from us.
Yeah.
Our sales tax revenue, that continues to stay strong. I don't know if anyone was out and about in town this weekend, but it was wide open, and every time I see that, I just smile, so I know it's helping us. But the purple dash line is this year's, and you can see, we did drop a little back in September, October, but we've been pretty steady at being higher for the past 3 or 4 months, so we're hoping that trend continues. We just have to see what it looks like at the end of fiscal year.
There's been a big push at the state level to encourage folks this way,
Yes.
so.
Revenue changes, we talked about this a little bit a few minutes ago. There is a 3% increase proposed, which comes out to about $153,000 in revenue impact.
Let me ask a question on this right here, just so the public understands. What is the rate that the county is charging for trash pickup?
I'm fairly certain that it's just short of $30 a month.
It used to be 22, and now they're up to 29.
It's 29
I
and
think.
some change, I believe.
And so, when you look at our sanitation and divide that by the person, by the citizens, we're paying somewhere in the neighborhood of how much per month per household? What are you figuring that
In
at?
order to break even, which would mean we would charge exactly what it cost us, it's around between $18 and $20 a month.
Okay, so,
It's still it's still a great deal.
but I'm just saying, if we took what's in the budget under sanitation, how much is that per household?
Currently right now, this is gonna be a guess. $18.51.
Now that is just the sanitation budget,
That's correct.
okay?
That's correct.
But we're also charging customers $5, and that'll be $8.
That's correct.
So
So if you took that off of that budget, it'd be about, our revenue for the trash pickup is around $500,000 roughly.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be taking, but the citizens have to end up paying that.
That's correct.
So isn't the real cost somewhere close to 26?
No.
Mm-mm.
That 18 number is total, and then we're charging now $8. So
Yeah, but
we're
that's,
making up $10 through tax revenue, through other forms of.
yeah, but on the expense side, under the sanitation budget,
Yeah,
the figure is 18 to 20.
right.
That's what we're having to pay. Per
That's
household.
what it costs the town. It's $18 to $20 a month,
Okay,
right?
all right.
And we're charging $8 on your water bill, and we're covering the rest through other revenue sources.
We're just eating the rest, honestly.
But that $8 is something that the citizens still have to pay.
Right.
They're paying that amount.
Right.
So what I'm trying to get at is that we're less than the counties, which have to pay. But it's not down around 18 or 20. It's really higher than that, because from what actually comes out of the citizens' pocketbook, because they're paying their taxes, and out of those taxes come the sanitation budget.
Yeah.
Then they're also paying each month the waste fees.
But that
So,
totals $18 to $20.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how you get that. Because if you look at the sanitation budget, and as Josh just did, we're coming up to 18 to 20. That $8 doesn't figure into that.
That's correct. It does not. You are correct. It does not figure into that. That's correct. But if you figured $8 in sanitation budget, if you wanted to use that revenue for the sanitation budget, then your budget is cut by $500,000, then it's less. It's $500,000 instead of $1 million.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the citizens are paying. However we try to do the bookwork up, it's costing them. Now, I just want them to understand that we are doing a job for less money
Absolutely.
than the county can.
Absolutely. 100%.
And I agree with that 100%. Not to the degree of $10, $12 though. It's only $3 or $4, maybe $5, the cost to citizens of Black Mountain.
At one point, we had it at 10, where in the original proposal, it
Yes,
was at 10.
it
And then
was.
we asked to move it down to 8, and
Right.
that meant we had to take another, I forget, 150, 200,000 out of the general fund
That's right.
to make up the difference, so it's gonna get paid either way.
Yeah, but it's coming out of the pockets of the citizens.
It is.
That's what we have to understand. It's coming out of the pockets of the citizens, so that the rate that we're actually charging, that is costing per customer, is higher than this 18 to 20.
I'm still on the same page. So, it costs the town roughly $1 million.
Let's just use $1 million.
It costs the town roughly $1 million to run the trash.
Yeah.
To run the sanitation, right? And that's nothing to do with revenues or what we're collecting, right? It just costs us $1 million, right?
And that's being paid for by the citizens through their taxes.
I'm not talking paid for, I'm just saying, what it costs the town, is it roughly $1 million, right? Is that
Let's
right?
just use that number.
Okay.
It's fine.
And that would, if you divide it out, that comes out to roughly $18 per household per month. Right? And so then we have to figure out where to find the $18. Right now, we're proposing $8 of that comes through the water bill, the monthly charge, and then the remaining $10 comes from tax revenue.
Or any revenue, for that matter.
Any revenue.
Right.
But the citizens are paying $18
Yes.
through their taxes, and they're also paying $8 a month through the sewer,
Well,
by the extra waste fee.
I don't think that's correct.
It's on the bill.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that we're not paying the extra $8.
It's
What I'm arguing is
offsetting
that
that
the sanitation doesn't get $8 more expensive because now we're charging $8. It costs the citizens $18.
$8 of the 18 comes from a fee, and the other 10 is shared across
The general
tax
fund.
revenue. And
We're
it's
not
not,
gonna, we're not, certainly not gonna, resolve it tonight, but
Okay.
I disagree.
I do remember when we've had this conversation here, because the tipping fees, a whole bunch of things that were beyond our control, tipping fees and the fuel, just the cost of tires on the trucks, all of the things that we don't really get to decide kept going up. And at some point, I think it's a really good conversation for us to have if we're not required by law to provide a sanitation service. If it's becoming burdensome, and I still think that our quality of service is far better than what the county, what do they call them now? Not Waste Pro.
F something.
Yeah,
FCC, I
switch
think,
service.
maybe.
Yeah, they switch services, and maybe things have improved, but at any rate,
If we wanted the sanitation department to stand alone, like the water fund, then the citizens would have to pay an additional $18 to $20, because none of that money could come from their property tax. Now we're subsidizing that amount with tax revenues or all those sales and use tax and all those other
You answered
changes.
them. You made my point.
It just all depends on how you want to look at it, your taxes never should have paid for garbage. That should have always been a user fee based. Or you could say the taxes should have paid for it, which I think is what this town did. Next. This already, a little bit, ad valorem is almost 50%, and then you've got sales tax, the other big one. Next. So our expenditures break down, this is just how they break down in our, this comes from the audit, right? This type of language. Tammy, public safety, water resources, public works, general government, transfers, culture and recreation, community and economic development, stormwater, which gives us our $19,506,250 for the recommended budget. Our little dollar bill here that kind of shows you where your dollar goes. For those that were itching to know, most of it goes to public safety, almost 50 cents, not quite. And that is.
Well, we are in a public hearing. The public hearing has been open. If anyone wishes to speak to this topic of the budget, let them please come forward. Doesn't look like anybody is coming forward, so I have a motion to close the public hearing.
just to confirm, we didn't receive any email and statement.
I have not.
Let me just make one statement before we pass on. I feel very strongly about this, and the fact that we're going ahead and giving a 3% COLA to the town employees. Last year, I made this recommendation, and hoping it would be this year, but we'll wait and see. I think that it's very fair for us to go ahead and to take the majority of that money, maybe 80% of that money, pass it on to the women that are making less than $60,000, $70,000 a year. Because this is a reoccurring fee. This is reoccurring money that they will be getting. For those up in management, do like the city of Asheville does, give them a $1,300, $1,500 check as a bonus. I think that is a good, fair way to recognize that the folks who are doing some of the work, most of the work, are the ones that are going ahead and getting the money. I'll leave that out there. Someone wants to take it up, if not. So, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, now do we hear a motion to adopt the budget ordinance?
I'm going to adopt the budget ordinance as presented.
Okay, discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
I want to express my deep gratitude to all the town staff that worked so hard to put together this budget. This has obviously been a heartbreaking year in many, many ways, and we're in a situation that no one would have wished for. It's been, at least for me, heartbreaking to also look at the budget and see us cut things that we're wanting to provide and just not able to at this time in a fiscally responsible manner. So thank you to everyone for your hard work to make that possible.
All right. Your next public hearing, 6B, will be consideration of an ordinance granting to the Public Service Company Enbridge of North Carolina Incorporated and assigns the right to use and occupy the public rights-of-way of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a gas utility system and all necessary means for transmitting and distributing gas within said town for a period of 30 years.
Brian, can we go ahead and discuss this first and then do the public hearing after we discuss it? Before we adopt it?
Council discussion?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, council discussion about this.
About the Enbridge
Yes,
ordinance?
Yes. And then open it for the public if there's somebody who wants to speak, which I don't think there is, but just procedure.
Yeah, no,
Open it up first.
I would prefer it be opened up first.
Okay, all right. Do I hear a motion to open up the public hearing to discuss this renewal draft?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody wish to speak to this? So, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. One of the things that, in looking through this, and Brian, I wanted to ask you about it. and
Yeah.
that when it gets into, because obviously they're coming on our public rights of way. Years ago, we started talking, I hadn't read about actually, anytime that a public right of way is disturbed, and this is in the entrance of looking down the road for adding sidewalks. Now, I'm not proposing that we require them to put a sidewalk in after they go. But is it possible for us to go ahead and put in here that when they disturb a right of way, that they need to come back, let's say, with an aggregate base that could be used as a path?
So Enbridge is the successor entity from Public Service Company of North Carolina. Enbridge has been giving municipalities, Henderson County, Hendersonville, difficulty with their gas lines, in the sense that when Hendersonville wanted to put in a new sewer line to go across Enbridge gas line, they were going to require that the sewer line be 4 feet deeper than it was actually designed. And so Hendersonville and Enbridge are in a big tiff about what Enbridge is requiring of the city. And when you lower your sewer line 4 feet and you're trying to hit a manhole 100 feet down, it's a significant increase in the cost of that construction. City of Hendersonville just said, you're gonna have to sue us in order for us to do it. We're gonna do it as designed. And so that all goes to say is, I worry about not having enough information in this ordinance that talks about that the city, within inside of its own right-of-ways, has the ability to allow other utility providers, including whether it's cable or sewer or water lines, to be installed at appropriate locations. And because I think Enbridge is going to give you I guess some issues with some of that, there'd be no reason that if they were going to tear up a right-of-way, that I think right now it says that they're going to put it back in the pre-construction condition. There's nothing that says you can't require of them. You're granting them this 30-year ability to use it. There's nothing that says you can't require them to create it to a better construction condition or post-construction condition. It happens all the time, and I'm telling you, Enbridge is really difficult to work with. And so don't think it's just a 30-year non-exclusive easement and they're gonna shake your hands and pat you on the back and say, hey, great, you're gonna wanna go and repair a sewer line. You're gonna wanna armor some kind of water line or whatever. And they're gonna be like, not letting you do that under our gas line. I think they're out of Texas. And they've been very difficult. So, Mayor, yes, I think if you want to put it in there, you can negotiate that as part of your ordinance, so that when they tear up a right-of-way, that the condition that it's put in is better than before. Or a condition that would accept a sidewalk.
Just a good aggregate base of traffic bomb, so that when someone's walking, whether it's Blue Ridge Road, whether it's Highway number 9, there's a lot of areas we don't have sidewalks and where we need to get them put in. And if they're gonna be going in that area, this would certainly aid us and reduce our expense if we could go ahead and have this base put in there already.
Yeah, I mean,
As opposed to just saying, okay, better than what it was before. Well, okay, it had dandelions in it before, now they're gonna put bluegrass, because that's bluegrass. Well, we don't need that.
And so I suppose it would have to be specific as to what you are looking for. What kind of, are you just like your crush and run kind of stone, whatever kind of stone you're out there
I would just say a
looking
good
for.
2 to 3 inch base of traffic bomb.
Yeah, but you'd want to make sure that it was approved by those folks in your utilities department that says it's safe for foot travel or whatever, so that we're not increasing any kind of liability.
If we propose a change to this contract tonight, does it have to go back? Can we vote on it tonight? I mean, this is the contract Enbridge thinks we're approving tonight, right? So,
Well, they asked us to.
right, but if we're offering a change,
Yeah.
I think what it would do is, they haven't signed it or agreed to it yet, they're asking you to adopt it. If you go back with the change that says, you can't tell us how to utilize our right-of-ways for any other utilities that we're providing, and that when you do the construction, we want you to have it, you'd want to be specific, and I wouldn't feel comfortable right now, just, Mr. Mayor, maybe you know more about it than I do, but to say, just an aggregate base, 2 inches thick. I mean, like, what kind of stone, what quality of stone are you putting down there? How much does it have to be compacted? Are we gonna run into any, are they creating a swale on the backside so it keeps the stormwater runoff moving the right way? So I think somebody smarter than me would have to say how that needs to be designed so it can accept a sidewalk or foot traffic. But the answer, Pam, to your question is, yes, you can add anything that you want to this, and if they don't accept it, then I think, yeah.
but you're saying that we don't have the proper language tonight to know what to add.
If you all feel comfortable with what the mayor said, a 2-inch aggregate base.
2 inch aggregate
But the
traffic
reason you're
bomb.
here is because you help us prevent problems down the road.
I think it would need to be more specific about that, how wide it's gotta be, how deep that aggregate base has to be.
How close it is to the edge of the road.
Yeah, because I don't know how wide, if you have a 60-foot right-of-way and they're putting it on the very edge of the 60 feet, which is 10 feet from your roadway, do you want it there? Because that's not where you're gonna put your sidewalk in 10 years.
Yeah, I would want some flexibility in an ideal world to consider the situation and the location and so.
Right, I think this is a great idea, but I wonder, are there residential streets that maybe we wouldn't want this on? Do we need to, I would imagine there are, and so, it does seem like something we have to be a little more specific about.
When does the current contract end?
July 10th,
So we really don't have time to,
I'm guessing. That's the date the last one was signed.
Maybe we can ponder that while I bring another question. From my reading, my understanding is they removed a coordination with other utilities section, previously section 7C, if my notes are right.
From the
That's-
one that's currently existing, they moved coordination with other utilities?
I didn't find it at all.
And so maybe that's what I was talking about. I didn't read the
That's
old.
what we're talking about, because I never saw that.
I'll find it, but.
You do not want Enbridge telling other utility providers, including the town itself, where their sewer lines need to go, where your water lines need to go.
Yeah. I could not find this language from our current agreement in the new agreement. The company shall coordinate with other utilities which use the public way. Upon request of the town, the company shall provide information identifying the location of company facilities.
That's likely needs to be included in there also, which is all part of what we're talking about right here.
Yes, so I wanted to throw that into the mix. That feels important to make sure we're clear about.
So it sounds like we need to send this back to staff to.
Because I think that language needs to be revisited.
Or something to
Yes.
that effect. I mean, maybe it needs an update, maybe it needs to be revisited for deeper consideration, but at a minimum, I would want that in there.
And certainly you could add at locations that the town desires, if Enbridge is putting in a utility, that it shall be reconstructed to your condition.
So we could have a case-by-case clause?
As approved, yeah, because I think that they talk about giving the town some approval authority on some of the other matters, and I don't remember where I read that. But you would just add that provision to the aggregate base provision.
And we could have some kind of internal mechanism to handle that?
Yes, you could have a definite it wouldn't be me going, where does that aggregate base need to be? Yeah, it would certainly be with the
You know, we could
approval.
simply say, if it's gonna be a right of way, it's gonna be near a road. I mean, that's the main thing. And so then it's gonna be within so many feet of the edge of the road.
Well,
I
then
would
it's
think
always better to have some flexibility there, just to know that there are weird cases that come up. I mean,
I don't know if-
I agree with you, but I wonder, what can we not guess at right now that 20 years from now will be the case, that I'd like a future council to be able to, or town manager to be able to consider and have a leg to stand on here. I mean, this is a 30-year document.
Mm-hmm, yep. It's 30-year.
So if you go ahead and come up with some stuff for us, so that we would have it by the next meeting, so that you can disseminate it to Josh, and Josh can send it out to us to look at.
Work with it.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll have lunch.
And what are the...
An enthusiastic yes, because I love Enbridge, but if we can, if we can put in some good language to help the town out, I'd be delighted.
I was thinking about Blue Ridge Road, for example, and I know you're particularly interested in that. We have a corridor plan, what do you call that?
Small area plan.
Plan already, and I remember we had a conversation about which side of the road the bike path would go on. So we already have things in place that they would have to coordinate and work with us on if we're gonna ask them to do that stuff.
So Brian, what is the impact if we don't meet the deadline of this sunsetting?
No, I was surprised that it was this close to the deadline, that we were just looking at this ordinance. The old one, I don't know what it has as far as renewal provisions, if it says if a new ordinance isn't adopted at that time. I think they're still gonna provide gas service, would be my bet, because they're gonna want their
I would hope so,
money.
yeah.
They're gonna want the ordinance so that they know what obligations, duties, and responsibilities they have under it. And so I don't know if there is a 30-day renewal, if it's not signed, that they can continue to operate under the old agreement.
See it,
Would you like to have this copy of it to just, so you have it?
I don't see anything in here that says anything about what happens
would it be wise for us to pass a 30-day extension of the old agreement,
I'd be good to do 60.
60-day? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think you could. I mean,
I think
this
that'd be-
this old agreement, I mean, it's an agreement, it's an easement agreement, it's for the, Enbridge would have to sign it, I believe. Well, you guys are the party that's bound. So the statute of fraud says that if there's any interest in land that's going to be transferred, which this would still be an interest in land that you're giving to Enbridge, it has to be signed by the party bound thereto, which would be you all. You all would be binding yourselves for an additional 60 days to allow Enbridge to operate under this old agreement. Do I think you can do that? Yes. Do we need to hustle and get a new agreement in place? Yes.
Is 60 days advisable?
I mean, so here's what I would say. If you're going to create new duties, obligations, and responsibilities that you're going to present to Enbridge, they're going to have their Texas attorneys look at it, review it. I don't know how long it's going to take. It may take 15 or 20 days. I think 30 days would probably be too short of a period of time. Don't know if 60 days is too long or not enough. I mean, there may be some back and forth. I think the idea that the mayor had would be a great idea. They may balk at that. We may have to negotiate what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and what, not unreasonably withheld for the locations. All of that may take 60 to 90 days. 60 days can start. You can get it back in front of you again. If you still don't have it, you can do another 30. I mean, you don't want to give them eternity because then they won't do anything.
I'd actually maybe move that to 70 to make sure we capture our August meeting. I'm not going to do the math on the fly, maybe you can, but I'm ballparking to get us to August.
Okay, so you're making that a motion?
I will make that motion, yeah.
You heard the motion to extend for 70 days, while at the same time working on the language for the disturbance of the right-of-ways to make them be a walkable surface.
And the addition of some provisions that were withdrawn from the old one
Absolutely.
into the new one.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Did we close the public hearing?
Yes.
You did.
Actually, I think you did.
Oh, yeah.
All right, public hearings are over. Citizen comments for the second.
Don't have any citizen comments, I don't think. All right, next.
No unfinished business, new business. Chief Coffee and Fire Marshal Doug Morrow, will you mind coming up to the table there? This is a resolution to adopt fire department operational permits fee schedule. I know there were some questions that I fielded today, and I tried my best to answer those, but I thought I'd bring the experts tonight, and they can answer them much better.
All right. Good evening, council, Mr. Mayor, town manager. Before we begin, I just want to read one thing. Allows the jurisdiction to require the application of the permit. It does not exempt a portion of the fire prevention code to be followed. A jurisdiction that creates an ordinance to require the optional permit establishes a way to inform the authority having jurisdiction. A permit may trigger the necessity for separation of hazards, the establishment of a safety plan, or an evacuation plan that may have been otherwise overlooked. So they have an example that operational permit to a store that handles more than 60 gallons of a Class 2 flammable liquid. And a Class 2 flammable liquid is any liquid that has a flash point of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it just needs to get hot enough in the middle of the North Carolina summer in a metal building for it to ignite. If a jurisdiction has not adopted this provision, the owner designer is simply not required to apply for a permit from the jurisdiction when there is more than 60 gallons of a Class 2 liquid stored on the property. The owner designer is still obligated to comply with the minimum safety guidelines provided within the Fire Prevention Code, which is general statute. So everything that we're presenting tonight is not anything that is optional for anyone to follow. They still have to follow it. This is just allowing us to be able to track it better, to keep the town safe. I'll let Doug Morrow present.
Is there any questions? I mean,
I had a few questions come up as I was reviewing this. I was curious if this applies to the whole fire district or just to the town?
That was one or two.
so my jurisdiction as the town fire marshal only applies to the town limits. Once it goes outside the town limits, it technically falls under the Buncombe County Fire Marshals.
Thank you.
Even though we surface that.
Yes, sir.
So this fee table would not apply to anybody in the district that's not in the town limits?
Yes, ma'am.
So do they pay a fee? I mean, who's inspecting them, and we're responsible for their safety if they're in our fire district, correct?
We're responsible for responding to their 911 emergencies, but when it comes to the inspections of the East Buncombe District, that falls under the jurisdiction of the Buncombe County Fire Marshals. So we don't have anything to do with that. That is a completely separate service.
Gotcha.
I was also curious if the $50 fee is per item or for any and all that are listed here?
It'd be per permit. So just like any other permit, if you want to store cryogenic and in your wood shop, then you would have a cryogenic permit and, a woodworking permit if it falls under the parameters for you to require a permit.
Do you have a sense that, let's say I'm opening a shop just selling crafts, a lot of our shops downtown. How many of these would apply to a typical store? Like,
Not a whole lot.
okay.
We're not talking to somebody that's going to go down here and carve little trinkets and stuff like that. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at major dust and sawdust accumulation, which when you finally divide fuels, we take it, from a 2x4 to sawdust, the ignitability goes up.
So I'm imagining most of these are for commercial buildings. Are there any residential applications here?
No, because the fire code doesn't apply to 1 and 2 family dwellings, so it's all going to be commercial.
Or an apartment building, something like that, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Those were my questions, so.
And just note, other municipalities do charge this. When I was working with the Hendersonville Fire Department as a fire marshal over there, they have operational permits as well, at a much higher rate.
I believe we had on the chart two Montreats as well.
Yeah, we provide their
And so those
fire
are existing.
services.
And so, back to Ms. King's question, we do contracts, so I do the inspections for the town of Black Mountain and for the town of Montreat.
Do we have a sense as to how much what workload this would increase for you?
It's going to increase the workload, but my goal is for the safety of this town. That is everything I do, from inspections to investigations, fire prevention and emergency management. That is my goal.
But we wouldn't anticipate this requiring another part-time staff member or something to enforce.
If you're offering, I'll take it. I can use all the help I can get.
Okay.
So some of these have delete on them. Are they no longer? Sprinkler, fire alarm?
Yes, ma'am. So there's kind of a little bit of, going through the fee schedule, there were some things that was not included. And some of this stuff that I've marked up delete is kind of a duplication. So going back through the fee schedule, we had nothing in the fee schedule for acceptance testing. And when I talk about acceptance testing, so if a building puts in a fire sprinkler system, I have to go out, I do a rough in, I have to do the air test, and then do the final test. Similar to a fire alarm, I have to go out and do a rough in, and then I do a final test where we're testing each device to make sure that it signals back to the alarm panel at the correct location. So you take an apartment building, smoke detector goes off in unit 1, it needs to read on the panel Unit 1, not Unit 5. We also have to make sure that it goes through their monitoring service. So any alarm, once that alarm is triggered, it goes to a monitoring service, then they call the Buncombe County Dispatch Center, who dispatches us to the call. So that is also part of the test. So some of these tests take hours because, give you an example, Highland Farms new apartment. You got 30 apartments, each apartment has 2 smoke heads, not to count all the door closures, pull stations, hallway smoke detectors, stairway smoke detectors. So I'm there for quite a long time. Just like the sprinkler system, I'm in the attic, I'm from the first floor to the attic, checking sprinkler pipes, making sure it's all done, walking the building during the air test and the water test to make sure we have no leaks.
So these are just redundants.
Yes, anything that's marked delete is just, we're taking out the old and replacing it with the new plan review fees. And like I said, there was nothing in here for acceptance testing.
Anybody got anything else? If not, do I hear a motion?
I'm trying to find the motion list.
I move to adopt the operational permits under Chapter 1 of the 2018 North Carolina Fire Code.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any chance you can amend that to get my part-timer?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, 9B.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
9B is amendment to the internal fund balance policy for the general fund. You can see in your packet, I just created a resolution like was done in the past, for the past 2 iterations of this. The first one being in 2001, there was a resolution that set that at 30.5%, and then in 2016, that got lowered to 30%. And then, at least for this upcoming fiscal year, I have put 10 to 15%, and I have talked to a couple of you, and I think maybe some of you are more comfortable with a static number instead of having a 10 to 15, just having make it 15 or whatnot. But this is what I drafted for you. Happy to talk about that more, or change that to instead of a range, to a static number. But more than likely, we're gonna be really close in that range for a little while.
I think it ought to be a set number and set it to 10%. That gives us cash that we've got in case we need to use it.
That's not much reserve, though. What's the auditor say about this?
I haven't discussed this with the auditor. They're gonna say the more you can have, the better off you are, of course, but I don't think we can go much higher than 15%, to be honest with you.
Well, I know it's apples to oranges, but in my experience running a nonprofit, the auditors always wanted us to have 3 to 6 months of reserve. I mean, it's a completely different scenario, so I get really nervous when we get down to much lower than you've proposed, so. I mean, you have to pay staff and whatnot, no matter what.
I could agree that it definitely, in regular times, yes, have it high. We haven't had regular times here, and we've still got a lot of repair work we've got to do.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, these are extraordinary times. I'm just saying that, the sooner we can get back upward, we need to be, the better. And, 30%, I was really happy when we were up there. I totally get it, why it's happening, and, we're working really hard to get the money coming back in, but, to have the impression that we have lots of money that we can spend is just not accurate. We need to be really frugal right now.
I'm a little confused by the language because it kind of shifts between the different whereases. In the third whereas, it says a minimum of 30%. And then in this updated whereas, basically, a fund balance reporting, the final one, that now therefore be it resolved that the town of Black Mountain, that the unassigned fund balance for the general fund be lowered to between 10 and 15%. So what's important to me would be that the fund balance have a minimum of whatever number we set. The target can still be much higher, 20% or whatever, but we have some flexibility to dip below as we approve different funds and money comes in and from FEMA or other sources. And then, of course, it would be up to this council and future councils to ensure, or I guess this council, because it's just for the fiscal year 2025-26, that we don't, to approve or disapprove of expenses that would put us closer to that 10%, if that makes sense. So setting a minimum of, and ensuring that the language there is a minimum of 10% is fine for me, and not a target of 10%, if that makes sense.
You making that in form of a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I agree. All right, so there's a motion on the table here to set it at a minimum, set of 10% with a target of.
Much higher.
Yeah, you're not even, you just got, and a higher target.
Yeah, don't put a target. Yeah, we don't need to put a number on the
Okay,
target.
okay, just a higher target. So that's the motion on the floor.
The intention would be that the target would be higher.
One thing to keep in mind, even though 30% sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's basically
That ain't a lot of money.
3
That ain't a lot of money at all.
3 months of operating this town.
I mean, right now, we've got about $2 million in the savings account.
And just so everyone understands it, So that's the motion that's on the table. Any more discussion?
I just want to make sure everybody knows this is a temporary situation, that we're not advocating this on the long term, that we're just trying to be sensible right now and do what we need to do, but that we should revisit this frequently. Not re-vote on it, but just
Well, the way we've got it written,
monitor it
the
carefully.
way we've got it written,
For 1 year.
the way we've got it written, we'll need to revisit it next year as we go through budget again.
That's right.
Exactly.
Hopefully, I can tell you then that we're at 30%.
Or just so they're higher.
Or 50 or whatever.
I wonder if it could become a practice when we have budget amendments brought before us to review kind of a snapshot, is that?
I mean, it can be, that percentage is so fluid throughout the
Okay.
year.
It might be too confusing.
It is hard to, I mean, it changes quite often. And that's based on, during the lean time before we start getting payments in for property tax, we're very lean. And it's probably gonna be pretty low at that point.
Yeah, to me, this is an example of one of the heartbreaking conversations that we are having to have this year, and, I'd love for it to be higher than 10. I understand the feasibility, so I can get there.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passes.
9C, Jessica? Selection of McAdams for Hilltop Road Stabilization Engineering Services.
We posted the RFQ specifically for the Helene stabilization, phase 1 of 2 for completing that. We had 2 firms respond. McAdams was the most qualified to take on this work, and staff's recommending that you officially select them as the engineering firm for phase 1 stabilization process.
I'm very pleased that we're getting to move forward.
So So some of the questions in here, so this is a 6-month project.
Once they,
Is that what once the contract is done and they sign it? Is it 6 months? They were saying here, month of client coordination meetings, that's 6. So I'm assuming that they're talking about
yes, an estimated
6 months.
6 months once I let them get going, which will be a little contingent on some property acquisition issues, but soon.
I spoke to one of those residents, and he was one of the property acquisition, but they were very happy to see this happening. Actually thanked us for doing what we're trying to do.
So, yeah, I would say the appraiser has been, I think he was a little upset. He said, I gotta work all weekend now to get your appraisal done, so. Anyway, that should, hopefully the next day or two, I'll get that appraisal for this property, so.
And that's the only action for that particular item's first selection.
Under this section in here, B12-30, where there's a subsurface utility engineering, that's $6,800 that they're doing that. And yet we, the town, are supposed to make sure that we are responsible for locating lines.
That's not location, that's engineering the subsurface utilities and figuring out how they fit into the engineered solution.
I wonder if these guys are utilizing a lot of what this North Carolina Department of Transportation is used for hundreds of roads, stacking rocks on rocks.
That's pretty much it.
That's what this is.
That's exactly what it is.
Some things haven't changed, have they? But I bet the fee's changed.
Yeah, the fee. We gotta pay $100-some-thousand to stack rocks.
Oh, just to design how to stack the rocks.
That's different.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve the resolution as presented.
All right. Discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then 9D, I think we're gonna move to the next meeting, correct?
That's right, we need to move this, the actual contract to the next meeting. The terms and conditions for all Halloween work are 14 pages long, and I think their attorney's hair caught fire when he saw them, and it's been, it's just not back yet. So it'll be back soon, and as soon as their in-house counsel has blessed it, we should be good to move forward.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna move that, so communication from town attorney and manager.
I've said too much already today, so.
Couple things, we are closed on June 19th, so that will be, next week, I believe. Yes, next week, next Thursday will be closed here, observance of that. I want to read this. The county put this out, and we're going to put this on our website, but thought it was kind of neat. The Friends of Buncombe County Special Collections are proud to announce the launch of a new crowdsourcing campaign aimed at building comprehensive digital archive to document the impact of Tropical Storm Helene in western North Carolina. Through the newly launched platform, Come Hell or High Water, the public is invited to share personal stories, photos, videos, auto recordings, and other digital materials related to the storm. And I've got the portal with the website here. We'll put this on our website. But they're asking basically for anybody to upload any kind of information to help tell the story of that tragic event. And then this, take one and pass it off the press. So this is a report of our golf course done by, I guess we'll say Dr. McCarty. I think the mayor had contacted this gentleman. Interesting enough, in this report, I'll just call some attention to page 6. Y'all can take your time and read this. But it's talking about long-term goals for the golf course. I think this is probably something we've all known. But in addition to the superintendent, this gentleman recommends a qualified equipment mechanic to be hired, an irrigation specialist, a spray technician, 4 full-time equipment operators, and several seasonal workers to actually operate the course, I guess, in the fashion that this gentleman's suggesting. Another interesting thing is a routine practice of closing 1 day a week at the golf course to give the course time to heal and time to do other things. So this is for your information. I thought it was good. There's some good information in here about course conditions and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to let you have that. And that's all I have.
Well, I've pontificated enough myself. Anybody on the board want to say anything?
I have something that I'm a little embarrassed to admit, and that is that it wasn't until this past weekend that I took the advice that we had been telling people several months, or for the first few months after the storm, and drained my water heater after it had so much sediment in it from those first 50 days or whatever that we were using, that we were on boil notice, and it was disgusting. And so if you have not done that, I highly recommend that everybody drain their water heater and flush it appropriately to get rid of some of that sediment left over from our water system there in those early days post-storm.
And I will add to that, make sure you do it correctly, because there's a lot of pressure that builds up if you don't release the pressure either through that release valve or an upstairs faucet, and it takes more than one flush. So keep it going.
You know a lot of stuff.
I did.
I want to say
I'm sorry.
a congratulations for a lovely weekend downtown with Art on the Tracks. It's great to see folks out and about.
I just encourage, these are out in the foyer, and our current newsletter is just full of interesting things, but the Park Rhythms concert starts soon.
That's this week, this Thursday.
This Thursday, and also we need, it's time to apply for advisory boards and commissions. There's openings on the website about all of that, and I think we have a swim meet tomorrow.
You do.
And we'll be blocking off part of Laurel Circle Drive. So just to give people a heads up, if they're wondering why that happened, that it's to keep the kids safe or everybody safe on the sidewalk there. And I was delighted to hear that we're having swim meets again.
And thanks for mentioning Park Rhythms. That is, it's going to be at Town Square this season, so that'll be new. So come out and check it out.
Anybody else? If not, meeting adjourned.
Are your kids at school?